We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies.
We need some global warming. It's freezing.
And running jump shot. Good! 2 seconds left.
If the Earth was not a ball shape, but was instead a flat disc.
You are listening to the Brothers Ledford podcast.
Welcome to the Brothers Ledford podcast, episode 17. My name is Clint. We are here. I've got Cody across the United States down in Florida right now. What's up, Cody?
Hey, man.
We're
actually both from Florida.
Yeah, we have a very special guest with us today. His name is Adam Jones, and you're going to hear a little bit of his story today. But Adam, why don't you say hey to everybody?
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
I hope that they're doing good. We hope that you're doing really good out there, out in the Brothers Nation. That I just coined that phrase, Brothers I think. Nation. Yeah, I think that's a brand new one. So Adam, obviously Cody and I know you, but we would love to just hear. So there's one topic in particular that we want to hear about. But why don't you just give us a little bit of background as to who you are, kind of where you come from, and then we can kind of jump into this massive topic that we have.
Sure. I'm a basketball brat. My dad coaches basketball. Followed him around throughout my whole life, from Tennessee to Mississippi to Florida, Miami, and then Tallahassee, and then kind of settled in here. Ended up going to college at Florida State, getting into computer science and working in IT. And now I work for the state of Florida for the Department of Environmental Protection as the information security manager there.
Wow. Nice. What's that like? Is that intense, or is that a little bit more like on your at your pace, or what is that like?
It's interesting. I mean, there's some days when you get to see everybody's secrets, right? You can see their internet browsing history and do all that kind of stuff. And some days when you just wish that you could just wipe that from your mind's eye.
Yeah, that could get awkward.
But I like it. You have a decent amount of autonomy in that job because you're ultimately responsible to the secretary when it comes to matters of information security. So a lot of other people don't try to interfere with what you're doing.
Yeah. So that kind of leads us, obviously. So you're really good at IT. You do a lot of work with. Were you doing work with the government before? How long have you been doing that kind of work?
So yeah, I've worked for the state for going on about 7 years now, and I had been at this particular job since 2013, and they actually gave me leave without pay to go to Antarctica and come back. So I came back to the same job that I left.
Wow, man, that's fantastic. So as he cool. he just dropped a bomb on us. So Adam actually spent a little over a year?
It was about 13 months total. Yeah,
13 months in Antarctica doing IT work. So as obviously just. Antarctica is probably the craziest thing that exists just because of the Antarctic Treaty and all the different things that go into Antarctica even just existing, and how do you even get to it. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about the story of how you applied for this, what that whole process looked like, even just getting a position to be able to be working there.
I've always wanted to travel quite a bit, and so I just kind of one day was like, what's the furthest place away that I could possibly go? And looked it up, and it was like, I wonder if people actually have jobs in Antarctica, and they do. I believe there's dozens of bases, mostly dotted along the coastline of Antarctica, with a small handful on the interior. And about 5 years in a row, I applied before I got a call back.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fairly competitive. There's one network engineer every year at the base that I worked at.
Just one.
So, what's that?
Just one.
Just one.
That's insane.
So, only one person gets to do it per year.
Wow.
So yeah, I just kept applying, and eventually, my name got pulled from the lottery, I guess.
Yeah. So
you bugged them long enough, and they gave in.
The interesting thing about that is when you're going down there, you have to do something called a PQ, which is a physical qualification.
Uh-huh.
And kind of the way that I got down there was by default, was because everybody in front of me in line NPQ'd.
Really?
No way.
So, yeah.
What do you have to do to not make the cut for that?
It could be It can be any number of things. So there's a medical PQ and there's a psychological PQ for working at the South Pole.
Yeah.
And the psych is kind of mystery meat. They have 2 psychiatrists that have been to Antarctica that do this for the program, and they just NPQ like 20% of people on average that apply to get down there. So there's that kind of medical PQ. They have to make sure you don't have any disease on your. You have to be completely free of dental disease. You have to be obviously no STDs or anything like that. You have to have no gallbladder stones. So that was that.
Wow.
Getting into that for a minute, that was my issue. Was I had gallbladder stones when I went in to get the sonogram done, and I had a choice of either you can get your gallbladder removed and go to Antarctica or not. And I did it.
Wow, you did.
Wow.
That's super intense.
Wow. So what obviously doing IT stuff, what did that look like? What exactly was the position? What were you doing? Who were you working with? What was the team like? Just some of the basics.
So there's two seasons, so to speak, at the South Pole. There's the austral summer season, which is our winter here, and that lasts for 3 months. It's November, December, January. And that's when you have a ton of scientists coming and going, a ton of personnel coming and going, and the station population gets to be about 150. Ours, I think the highest we got was 188.
Wow.
Which, when you're all in one building, kind of sucks because you're all on top of each other.
Yeah. So it's not very large.
It is a large building, but 188 people perpetually trapped in one building together you're just all over each other.
Oh yeah.
Here.
So we've got that, and during that, it's basically a normal IT operation. You've got the IT manager is there. I had from 5 to 6 other IT people there with me at all times. We worked on, just you need to go out, fix this switch. You need to go out, reconfigure this stuff. We need to do this project work to support this science project. There was something to do every day in the summer. The winter is a completely different beast because you're trapped there with 48 people. And there's not, and when I say trapped, I mean literally trapped. There's no planes that come or go, period, for those 9 months.
Wow.
And so that's why they go through all those medical tests to make sure that you're not going to die while you're down there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Lord, they've got a pretty good track record. Only 4 people have died at the South Pole since 1957 when they started wintering people there.
Yeah.
So
that's
it's
not bad.
extremely rare for something like that to happen.
Wow.
So was that the place that you were at? Was that one of the larger facilities in Antarctica?
Yes and no. Compared to McMurdo Station, which is the main United States station, it's very small. I mean, McMurdo in the summer has 1,200 people in it.
Oh, wow.
It's basically like a coastal mining town in Alaska. Yeah, it's a hustle and bustle place. Compared to other stations on the continent, we're on the larger side. I mean, a lot of other country stations have like 20 people in them or 12 people in them or something like that. Like I believe Vostok, which is the other interior station that belongs to Russia, I think they have people there or some absurdly low number during the winter.
Yeah. That's unbelievable. 1,200 people.
Yeah. So were you able at all during the what did you call it? The
austral, like
austral.
Australia.
Yep. Oh, okay. So during the austral season, what were you able to go to any of the other countries, like bases or anything like that, like research centers or?
In order to get there, we had to fly from the United States at the time it was the longest commercial airline flight in the world. It was from Dallas to Sydney, Australia. And then from Sydney we went to Christchurch, and the United States actually has a Antarctic terminal in Christchurch International Airport, and we fly out of there. But that terminal is shared by multiple other countries' Antarctic programs. So the Australian Antarctic program flies out of there, the Italian Antarctic program. So from there, we hopped on a military C-17 flown by the Air Force, and they took us from there to McMurdo Station on the coast. When we got to McMurdo, we had the opportunity to go over to a New Zealand Antarctic station called Scott Base. So those two are the only other stations that I visited besides the South Pole.
Okay. So you took a flight from Dallas all the way to Australia. What was a one-way, like literally a nonstop?
It was 16 and a half hours, I believe.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
That seems like
it wasn't that bad because it was on a brand new Airbus A380. It was a Qantas flight, and it was obviously a red eye, but it wasn't fully booked, so we each got a row to ourselves.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that bad.
Not bad. Yeah. It's best case scenario.
So a couple of the fun questions, to me at least. What was the coldest thing that what was the coldest temperature that it got? How long were you outside for at any given time? I just want to know, just a couple things.
So I believe the coldest temperature we got, it was definitely negative 108 point something. It was either 1 or 9, something like that. Because that makes a huge difference when you're at negative 108.
109 feels even worse.
So with wind chill, it was actually much colder than that.
Oh man.
So the longest I went outside probably would have been in the summer, and it would have been for. Actually, I was outside. So we had a plane crash on the skiway.
No way.
It was a small twin otter, which, if for anyone that doesn't know, they're small like biplanes with just rotors. They're not jets or anything like that. So it had a ski come loose and dig into the dirt as it was dig into the ice as it was taking off, and it caused the plane to go nose first into the ice in front of it. Everybody was fine, but it was leaking fuel, so I had to go out on fire watch from like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. or something like that. So that was probably the longest I was standing outside.
Oh,
that's crazy.
What was the temperature then? Do you remember?
That was the summer, so it wasn't that bad. It was like negative 25.
Legitimately,
Unreal.
Even just moving, because whenever I started seeing pictures and stuff, I had no idea that you were going to Antarctica, but then I started to see like a Facebook post at one point, and I was like, oh my gosh, right? I'm thinking like I just went through a New England winter, and I'm like, yeah, man, it got to like negative 15, like it was cold, lots of snow, and then I was like, this dude's in Antarctica. Like that's a completely different world.
The real reason I did it is I got tired of New Yorkers and Canadians telling me that I don't understand what real cold is like, and so now I can turn around to them and be like, "No, you don't understand."
Negative 108. Okay, so
that's nuts.
So really quick, so the flight from Australia to Antarctica, what was the
New Zealand?
New Zealand. Okay,
yeah, Christchurch.
So what was the most surprising thing that you saw flying into Antarctica? Was it what you expected? Was it not?
The flight is probably what you would expect from watching like Planet Earth or something like that. You're just over open ocean, and then slowly you see sea ice creep up. You'll see some icebergs and stuff like that, but then you'll just see sea ice, and then it's just ice after that. There's not a modeling of different ice and water, and then after that, you start to see the Mount Erebus is probably, and the mountains on the coast there are probably the first thing you start to see differentiate. The much more interesting flight was from McMurdo to South Pole. On the way there, you fly in an LC-130 Hercules, which is a 4-engine plane. It's flown by the New York Air National Guard. So that one, the flight ceiling is high because you have to cross the Transantarctic Mountains between McMurdo and South Pole. So that plane is kind of high enough that it can just fly over the top of the mountains. The most interesting flight, and not even by Antarctica standards, not many people get to do this, was I got an opportunity to ride the Basler, which is a small twin prop plane. And that does not have a high enough flight ceiling to go over the Transantarctic Mountains, so you have to go through the mountains.
Stop it.
And that was really cool. Because you're literally looking at mountains that no human being on Earth has ever stepped on.
Right? That's so crazy.
And pilots, they're Bush pilots from Alaska. They're Kenboric Air, and so they don't have no problems with flying super low over the glaciers and doing stuff that other pilots probably would not be comfortable doing.
I can imagine.
So
what's the elevation like? I guess where you were stationed at.
So at the South Pole, you're sitting on top of a glacier, and it's 9,300 feet before you hit ground underneath. So you're at 9,300 feet altitude. The it's not really 9,300 feet atmospherically, though, because at the poles, the atmosphere is actually thinner than it is at the rest of the Earth. So if you're physically at 9,300 feet, but you can feel like you're at 11 to 12,000 feet.
Okay.
And it shifts, it changes quite a bit. So you could go out to work one day and it'll be 10,500 feet. And then you'll go to lunch and you'll walk up the stairs and you'll be huffing and puffing because it just changed 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
Over the course of several hours.
Wow.
So that's a good bit higher than, like, say, Denver.
Oh, it's twice as high as Denver. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
It's more like if you're in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Wow. That's hard to wrap my mind around.
Yeah, no joke. So how long was taking that 4-engine flight to the South Pole? How long was that flight? What did that look like? And then you took the one back that was the one that stayed really low. That was the twin engine. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a pressurized plane either, so I actually had to wear oxygen.
Oh my God!
No. It's 2017. I don't understand why they don't have That's crazy.
So there's two reasons for that. One is there's only a handful of planes on Earth that are capable of flying to and from the South Pole and landing there.
Yeah.
There's no hard pack or runway, so to speak. It's a skiway, so you can't land with wheels. You have to land on skis.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's only a smattering of planes. The LC-130s and the small twin-engine planes are the only things that can land there.
It's fascinating.
It really is.
So how long were those flights?
On the LC-130 it's 3 hours from McMurdo to South Pole, and then on the Basler it was like 5 hours.
Yeah. Wow. So
okay. So
go ahead.
Okay. You go, Clem.
No, jump in, dude. It's all you.
Okay. So we are just a little bit conspiracy minded. So
because everyone is.
Yeah, right. When it comes to Antarctica, there's so much mystery, at least to like the layman who pretty much has YouTube to rely on. What's some of the sketchy, I guess, what's one of the most sketchy things that you encountered in your time in Antarctica that you can talk about?
It's a super disappointing answer, but the sketchy things are all just about how the place is constantly trying to kill you more than it is about anything alien-wise or walk into the ice tunnels after in midwinter and you realize that the ceiling, because it's just carved out of ice, it looks like the hallways from Hoth in Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, wow.
And you realize that the ceiling is bowing down because of the new ice pressure and weight above you. And, you just that could probably collapse and kill me at any minute.
Yeah.
So you got that. I mean, the only kind of mystery thing that we saw while we were down there was at one point we have these Aurora cameras that function at night. They're the polar night, and some big bright red thing came across the sky at one point. And nobody knew what it was. It just was there.
Wow.
And it wasn't not like a UFO. It wasn't like flying zigzagging all over the place. Just a big red streak, much bigger than say like a satellite or a shooting star or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like an orb.
Wasn't really an orb. It looks like a comet, kind of.
Okay,
it's pretty cool.
So
pretty
probably cool. Nazis.
But going on with that, when I got home, I loved to listen. I love to listen to Coast AM, and literally the day that I got back into Tallahassee, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I'm driving home from the airport, and I'm listening to Coast AM, and they're talking about the medevac that we had during winter, and they're like, John Kerry's down there, Buzz Aldrin's down there.
Oh yeah,
people mysteriously got sick, and they uncovered some alien artifact, and yeah, I'm just like, trust me, if anybody knew any secrets down there, it wasn't the two people that got medevac. Those are like the least likely two people to have secrets.
Yeah. So what was the deal with Buzz Aldrin? And there were some rumors about Obama possibly going to Antarctica after he went to Argentina.
He didn't come to the South Pole. I can't verify if he went anywhere else.
Okay.
I would know if he went to the South Pole because it's a super small place.
Okay. What about John Kerry though? What's
John Kerry did not come
Secretary
to the
of
South
State?
Pole either. He went to McMurdo.
Okay.
It was shortly before he left office. So I don't know the entire details.
Yeah.
The distinguished visitors we had we had multiple 3- and 4-star generals. We had the Commandant of the Air National Guard, and we had the United States Ambassador to New Zealand, who also was a Chicago White Sox player and played baseball for Florida State also.
No way.
Mark Gilbert's his name. Yep.
Sweet.
That's
really
dope. So one thought that I had, so flying in, obviously you talked about seeing like glaciers and you saw all the different things like that. Is there in fact is Antarctica an ice wall? Like, does it start, is there 100, 200 feet high, like where it kind of just elevates? And
no, not on the coast at McMurdo. There is that in certain places where the glacial flows just come off the ground and directly into the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you see that
they're isolated.
places. But at like at McMurdo is actually on Ross Island, which is a small island just a couple miles off the coast of the main continent, and it's sea ice. It's just a few feet of ice literally sitting on top of the ocean, and then it runs into some mountains and stuff like that. So it varies. It's not a uniform wall all the way around like the flat earthers like to perpetuate.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue with flat Earth is no one can figure Antarctica out. Because I mean, for that to work, it would have to be a literal ice wall around everything. I mean, which is.
And I can personally attest that it's not. And and the other thing is, people are like, how come there's no videos of 24/7 darkness or 24/7 sun? And it's because in the places where that happens, like the South Pole, we don't have 24/7 internet, so we can't.
Oh, really?
Webcam 24/7.
Really?
But it definitely, the sun went down once and came up once while I was there. So we had 1 6-month night and 1 6-month day.
No way.
Yeah.
6 months.
Yep.
Holy cow. Yeah. So why not 24? Does it just get too cold? It just shuts off at some point?
There's no internet to transmit the video back to. We only have the internet for about 11 hours a day, and the NOAA cams and stuff are up for those 11 hours.
Yeah.
But they're not up for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And what's the reason for that?
So if you're literally on the geographic bottom of the Earth, most satellites are hover around the equator.
Yeah.
So if you're at the southern point on the Earth, you don't have a straight line of sight to those satellites.
Oh, because that's the issue with GPS over like the Indian Ocean, whenever flights go over the southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that? A lot of times they lose contact with the flights.
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, like it's almost impossible to track. Like even NASA has said there's issues whenever they send rockets.
There's probably
when they
also
go
a
over
lot less
the Indian
coverage
Ocean.
over the southern Indian Ocean just in general because there's nothing there.
Yeah, that's odd though. that just seems odd.
The way we get our internet is we actually wait for like old U.S. satellites to have. They're so old they start decaying in their orbit, and when they do that, they start wobbling back and forth. And when they wobble back and forth, they dip down south far enough that we can just barely see them over the horizon. And I'm talking about just like 1 to 4 degrees over the horizon.
No way.
Wow. And that's what you get your 11 hours of?
Yep. That's where it comes from. We retired the GOES 3 satellite while we were down there, and that was a weather satellite from 1974.
Wow.
That was not designed for internet usage, but they managed to jimmy rig it so it gave us 800 kilobits of internet for 4 hours.
800 kilobits? So what?
So not Xfinity.
So what kind of stuff were you trying to maintain and keep up while you were there?
A lot of cool stuff. So there's the 10-meter South Pole telescope down there, and then there's the Bicep satellite. There's Project Ice Cube, which is a really cool project where they try to look for cosmic neutrinos. Then you've got the RF building, which has our IT satellite dishes and stuff in it. One of the coolest places that also not many people get to go to is called Espresso, and it's a hole in the ground about 5 miles out from the station, where you literally have to dig out a hatch in the ground and then open it and then go down a 40-foot ladder straight down into this one room, and that room has detectors in it that are used for detecting earthquakes around the world, as well as equipment for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, so it can detect when nuclear explosions go off in the world.
Wow.
Oh, man.
So yeah, hardly anyone gets to go out there because you have to tell the Department of Defense and all these scientists, hey, we're driving out there, so we're going to screw up all your readings for the time that we're out there.
Yeah, I'm sure they love that.
I was fortunate enough that somehow, some way, something happened where one of the switch that serves that room got unplugged, and so they lost data connectivity to it, so we got to go take a trip out there. I have no idea how that happened in a room that no one is in, but it did.
So was that you flying back out there, flying to that spot?
No, you don't fly. We drove what's called an LMC. It's actually made by the same company that made the DeLoreans back in the 80s.
No way.
Yeah, DMC, LMC, it's the same company. But it's really cool because it's like you're on a ship. You're driving across, so it's not just flat. You have like the ice behaves at those like water almost, and it makes these things called sastrugi, which are like these kind of waves of ice that come lift up a little bit off the ground and then dip back down and lift up and so yeah, you're really heavily just going up and down like you're on a ship driving out there. It's pretty cool.
That's so weird. So there is land under the ice, right?
There is 2 miles down.
Okay. So everything above that is just kind of doing its thing.
Right.
Wow.
It's cool when you're walking on like sastrugi that has not been flattened or plowed by the machinery out there, because occasionally the ice waves sort of go over to the point where they make a pocket of air underneath them. Mm-hmm. And so you'll step on an area and you'll see just like this kind of fairly large area kind of depressed down at once, and you'll hear a hissing sound, and it makes your butthole tighten up just a little bit.
I bet.
A 2 mile drop.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah. So can you confirm? I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people listening, because I mean, how many people have worked in Antarctica that way? I mean, how many people have spent a year there? So
according to SouthPoleStation.com, which is an unofficial website run by a guy who's wintered a few times named Bill Spindler, I am the 1,466th person in human history to winter at the South Pole. The first crew was in 1957, and it's been one crew ever since, every year.
That is wild. Man. I mean, congrats on that, man. That's incredible. Huge. That's
our machine has made us little coins with our winter over numbers on them to take home with us. Yeah.
So how much do you know about the expeditions that Admiral Byrd did? You know Admiral Byrd?
I do know Admiral Byrd. We've got some news articles and stuff. We were much more focused on, as far as the history of the station we're at, on Roald Amundsen and Robert Falcon Scott, because those are two guys that made it to the South Pole first. But I'm fairly familiar with the Byrd's flights, his trans-Antarctic flights and stuff like that.
Yeah. So because that's one of the other big questions, especially like whenever you're talking about people that are interested in either Hollow Earth or Flat Earth. Admiral Byrd is a name that comes up a lot in conspiracy circles, because, you know, he came back and gave that interview on TV in like the 40s where he was talking about how there was a landmass beyond the South Pole that was as big as North America. Have you ever seen that, Adam?
No, there's no landmass south of the South Pole. So it's like south of the South Pole is like asking for a four-sided triangle. Like the question doesn't make sense.
He was saying that there were resources and things there that
north if you pass the South Pole, right?
In any direction you step, if you're at the geographic South Pole, you're stepping north.
So
that would make sense.
He was saying that there were resources basically on the other side of North America from, you know, the South Pole. That people
all sorts of resources under the ice. They're extremely difficult to get to, though.
Wow, yeah.
And there's no way that he would have been able to see that from the air.
No, yeah. That's so fascinating to me, though.
Yeah, those conspiracy theories are not well founded or thought out at all.
Yeah. I believe it. I do. But I also have my suspicions as well. It's crazy. It's crazy that it's 2017 and there's just, I mean, Antarctica, it's obviously talking to you is like just mind blowing to me right now because you've been there and you can confirm for everybody here that Hitler's not there as well, right?
There's no not, well.
Oh,
there's none of those guys.
Hold on.
That pause is going to cause.
We had a suspicion about one of our chefs, but
Is that just because he sucked? He was just a horrible cook, and you're like, you know what? This guy might
serve sauerkraut every day.
So what was the most exciting thing that you did while you were there in that entire year? What was like one thing that you can pinpoint that you'll tell everybody for the rest of time?
For sure, it was the medevac, because while there's been medical evacuations at the South Pole before, none of them have been in the dead center of winter with the sun all the way down, no light, no nothing. And that was a learning experience for everybody, because none of us there are air crew. We don't know how to do any of that crap.
Yeah.
We had to figure it out, because we had to get these 2 people out of there so they didn't die.
Yeah.
The point that crystallized it for me is I was out there helping some guys. We were trying to figure out how we were going to light the runway, because there's darkness. The plane can't see. There's obviously no artificial light. There's no sun. The moon's down when they're planning to come. And so the way we decided we're going to do this is we sawed a bunch of oil drums in half, and we're going to fill them with jet fuel and light them on fire.
Oh my
God.
Way.
No way.
So we're sitting here, me and the SATCOM engineer and the waste disposal guy and the research assistant. The 4 of us are out there filling these barrels with jet fuel and hauling them out.
Oh my God.
And we dress the research assistant in firefighting gear and give him an acetylene blowtorch to try and light this thing on fire. And it's so cold. It's so cold that the fuel doesn't aerosolize, so it won't light on fire.
What? Jet fuel?
Yeah, it won't light on fire. It stays as a liquid form, and it won't burn in a liquid form. You have to make it sort of start to turn into gas particles to get it to light. So we had to stick a 2x4 in there to use it kind of like a candle wick, and then heat up the 2x4, and then that eventually got going. And what I always tell people, what is true, is the physicists and the chemists that are all there with us, the scientists, they're all assuring us like, no, it definitely won't blow up. You'll be fine. But they also didn't volunteer to come out and help us either.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's intense.
That's like that's what I'm saying is it's actually, and this is 100% true, it is easier to get someone off of the International Space Station during the polar winter than it is to get someone out of the South Pole.
No way.
For real, 100% for real. It took them I can't tell you the medical conditions that the people had that they were down there, but it took them 2 weeks from being notified of these to actually get a plane down there.
2 weeks.
So if they had a serious, like, immediate life-threatening issue, they'd have just been dead.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So
it's
hard to wrap your mind around how far and how cold it is. That's just nuts.
Yeah. And you can Google it. There's a Wikipedia page about winter over syndrome, so that's something that everyone's fighting throughout the winter also. They're not exactly sure what causes it, but among the people that go in there, it's called getting toasty. But the place is like being in the death zone on Mount Everest. Like, it's just very slowly killing you. There's no literally 0% humidity. Like, you can leave food out and it will not decompose.
Oh my gosh.
There's 0% humidity. You're at altitude. You're not getting any vitamin D from the sun. It's a very kind of the slogan for the program is "It's a harsh continent," because it is.
Yeah,
what's the benefit, I guess, like to have all that infrastructure down there?
I think it's 2 reasons. One, some really cool science happens down there. The stuff that the South Pole Telescope and Project IceCube are doing in particular is just amazing feats of engineering and science.
Mm-hmm.
The South Pole Telescope focuses on cosmic microwave background, so the age of the universe and discovering all sorts of various things in deep space, and the Project IceCube discovered the neutrino part, the cosmic neutrino down there. So stuff that may not necessarily have an impact on your everyday life, but stuff that is extremely advanced science, and who knows what it could potentially unlock in the future.
Yeah,
that's true.
So what's the idea behind doing that in a place like Antarctica as opposed to just doing it in, the middle of nowhere, Texas?
Sure. So you're just devoid of things that human existence causes that interferes with your experiments. So, if you were to dig, Ice Cube is a 1 kilometer set of DOMs that are these sensors they bury down in the ice. If you were to put that in Texas, you'd have semi trucks driving by. You'd have all sorts of stuff that would just pollute your results, whereas you don't have that issue at the South Pole.
Yeah.
And as for the telescopes, I mean, the atmosphere is thinner there. You have literally no light pollution whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's just an ideal place for doing specific things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That does make sense.
You kind of answered the question, but what's the psychological toll that it takes on you to be number one in sun, in daylight for 6 months, and then in the dark for 6 months, the cold. I mean, that has to. Is that why they only do like a year long? What's the longest you can be there? Like, what does that whole psychological side look like?
I mean, that's definitely part of it. Everyone that I know experienced this over time on some level. The winter over syndrome really starts to affect things like your cognition and your memory over time. As an example, I'm sitting there watching our utilities technician one day, and he's going to get ice cream, and he goes and grabs a fork and a drinking cup and starts scooping ice cream out, and then is like, "Why did I start doing that?" Like he didn't realize, and it happened to me too. I'm sitting here. I've lived with our systems administrator for 8 months now, and I just forgot her name while I'm talking to her. I'm like, I have no idea what your name is.
Wow.
Yeah, it really messes.
Kind of scary.
And you feel okay, you acclimatize and you feel okay, but when you get back to McMurdo and you're back at sea level and there's humidity and all kind of stuff, you're like, oh man, my oxygen is amazing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing with it killing you is the air is so thinner up there. It's literally 2/3 the amount of oxygen as what you're accustomed to the point that we had this guy named Johan who's done 12 winters down there, and he could beat anyone. He's an older dude, and he was able to beat anyone at badminton because he understood how the atmosphere affected the fly differently.
Oh my gosh.
It was absurd.
That's nuts. You'd have to spend some serious time doing that to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that the longest standing? I mean, what do you know of as the longest standing, I don't know, residency, I guess? What's the most winters that somebody's ever spent?
Johan's number 2. He was tied for number 1 the year that I was there, but the guy that he was tied with is also wintering right now.
Wow.
His name's Robert Schwartz, and he's done 13 winters at the South Pole now. He's in the middle of doing number 13.
Wow.
So and he's going next year too. So I think he said he's going to try to retire after 14, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Wow.
So one weird, again, another out of the box question, but I was talking to somebody and I was like, yo, and they know that I'm like super intrigued by flat Earth and the different, conspiracies like that. So I was like, Antarctica, man. So, they brought up something called, Vault 7. Is that does that sound familiar at all?
I'm not familiar with it now.
Okay. Yeah. They were talking about basically it was like a secondary Area 51 that existed down in Antarctica. I had never heard of it before, so I wasn't positive, but
it's important to note that would be illegal because the Antarctic Treaty specifically prohibits military activities on the continent from any country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. So yeah, that's actually a question I have. How is that treaty signed? It was signed in 1957.
I think it was 56 in the first.
56.
Yeah.
How is that?
One of those years.
How is that still going? It seems like those type of agreements don't last too long.
Well, it had a long expiration date on it. I believe it's actually set to expire in like 2025 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was purposely made with a long time period on it. So it hasn't expired yet. The other thing is, it's kind of like, what was that movie? The Martian, where, the Chinese government and the United States government may not always get along, but the scientists, the space programs do. And there's a ton of international cooperation amongst the space station, the polar stations. And, we all kind of realize that we're all in a small community and need to support each other because it's a harsh continent.
Yeah. No joke.
Makes sense.
No joke.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest conspiracy things is because supposedly Admiral Byrd went down, something happened, they got the heck out of Dodge, and like a year later, the treaty was signed.
If you want me to throw you a breadcrumb,
give me one.
What's much more interesting to me is the original South Pole Station. So there's been 3 stations. There was the original one that was crafted in 1957, and then there was the dome, which is the one a lot of people are familiar with. It's just like a big geodesic dome. And then there's the current South Pole Station, which it looks like a giant letter E with an extra leg. The original South Pole Station, they just allowed to be buried in the ice over time. They didn't try to dismantle it like they did with the dome. And you can't find a lot of pictures of it on the internet anywhere. There's not a lot of pictures of it on the station itself, which is kind of weird because they usually document just about everything. But and like there's a whole big area we're forbidden to go in that area. They apparently imploded it a few years ago because some people had like a back door into it. And allegedly, and I don't know, I haven't been inside of it, but allegedly inside of it, like there was still like the books were still on the bookshelves. There were still plates of food sitting in the galley. Like it's so odd. Like an abandoned ghost ship or something on the inside. Yeah. Like they just suddenly got up and left and never came back and just left everything behind.
That is a breadcrumb.
So if you want a breadcrumb,
I like it. That's a good one. It's tasty.
And that's the original?
Nobody knows. So I started that joking about that while I was down there. I was like, I knew a couple people who had ventured into it when it was still accessible. And I was like, so aliens attacked it, right? Aliens attacked it, and you just had to move stations because this one was radioactive or something.
Yeah, right. Something. Nazis.
Just leave it. Don't touch aliens. Don't bring the books. Just leave it.
So the real reason they imploded it, though, at least the official reason they imploded it, was because a piece of heavy machinery drove over it and it collapsed and pulled the machinery into it.
Huh.
And so they imploded it so that it wouldn't do that. At least that's what they say.
Yeah, that is what they say. So
that's super interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. Cody, what is any other things that are kind of just ringing through your head that are like you got to know?
Oh man. I mean, I do have some questions about what the Nazis were doing, but I've just read recently that they definitely did not have a base. So I had seen some stuff saying that they had a base, I think prior to World War II, but now I've seen stuff like debunking it. So I don't know. That was one of those things that was interesting because now we're kind of learning that Hitler may not have died. And there's a lot of evidence pointing towards Argentina. And we know that they were interested in Antarctica. And so I don't know. It's interesting.
I feel like if Hitler were alive, I mean, the Mossad is pretty good at what they do. They'd have gotten to him by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah.
Even if he didn't survive and make it to Argentina, I'm not sure he would have lasted that long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we know that Nazis did go to Argentina, but I'm guessing probably not Hitler.
But a lot of times we know that because the Mossad killed them and then told us.
Fair enough.
That's a good point. So what kind of was there any sort of stuff obviously with the Antarctic Treaty and with all the different things? Was there anything that you had to sign or anything that you had to that you can talk about? I guess you had to pledge to whenever you were going down there to work. Was there something that said like, hey,
Sure, it's not really a secret. Like
okay.
It's just you have to abide by the USAP internet usage policies. You have to abide by the codes of conduct set forth by the National Science Foundation. You have to agree to abide by all the provisions of the Antarctic Treaty. It's all open source stuff that we agree to. It's not anything that's hidden.
Okay, cool. And people, I've heard a lot of different rumors about people taking trips to Antarctica. Obviously where you can go and see. But it's very limited, right? It's very limited space. It probably costs a lot.
Limited. What's the limiting factor is the amount of money that you have to spend it.
Yeah.
So in the summer, we do get tourists that come to the South Pole, and they have their own camp set up by this company called ALE, which is a little ways away from the station. They're not allowed to come in the station or in any of the outbuildings. But I take that back. They are allowed to. There's an official station tour that we give to tourists. They're only allowed to go into certain parts of the station, but they are allowed inside for a brief time.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So there are tourists, and we just volunteer to give them tours. So me and the head chef gave this tour to a Basler full of Chinese tourists. They only had a couple of people. A couple of the younger people did speak English, and then they had a couple of translators that were their guides. But they all wanted pictures with us and all this other kind of stuff. And we're just like, we're going to be on some Chinese billionaire's desk.
Yeah, you are. You are. There's a picture there of you right now next to an emperor
some
penguin.
Guy that's like a big wig in China that owns like some multinational corporation. And they're sweet.
Yeah.
Mr. Nintendo.
Are there?
You're on his desk.
So outside of penguins, is there any life out there, dude? I mean, is there any? Do you see anything?
There's no penguins at the South Pole. There's no anything at the South Pole.
Just really at the edge of Antarctica, I guess.
Yeah, they're on the islands, right?
The penguins and the skuas and all the wildlife is at. And I did see some cool wildlife in McMurdo, but there's nothing at the pole. We literally leave our food just sitting outside because nothing's going to eat it and nothing's going to decompose it even at summer temperatures at negative 25.
Did you see the story that just came out about the 108-year-old some type of cake, fruit cake?
Oh yeah.
And they said it's almost edible. Like
I wouldn't eat it.
100-year-old,
108 years old. Yeah.
It was found in Shackleton's, one of Shackleton's camps on the coast. Yeah. Ugh, so you can go to Shackleton's huts and you'll still see like his cans of various types of fish or some seal carcasses that he left outside. Mm-hmm. No one disturbs it. It's kind of a historical site.
Wow.
But it's still pretty well preserved. It hasn't really
crazy. So that's so crazy. It seems like a refrigerator company would go down there and try to figure out the science behind it and recreate that. Because, I mean, if you could leave food in your fridge for 6 months.
Well, I mean, the science is just it's cold. I mean, it's much colder than your freezer.
So I guess it wouldn't be very good to eat if you left it out for 6 months.
So we call the food at the pole, stuff decomposes slowly at the coastal stations. We called it Reagan bacon because that was when it got delivered. Wow. It's not that old, but most of the food that we ate there expired years ago.
No way.
Like you'll look at even a can of Coke that you get from the store, you'll look at expired in 2012.
Oh my gosh. So there's stores and stuff. I mean, how often do they get shipments of anything?
We don't get any
Apparently not.
Yeah,
summer,
it's like
there's a store that sells like South Pole T-shirts and stuff like that, and it also has it has a lot of liquor, and it has a lot of like
winter
sodas,
months,
candy bars, and stuff like that.
Does anybody working there smoke at all? Because I imagine that's the worst place to pick up the.
If anyone ever denies that smoking is a chemical addiction, they need to come spend a winter at the South Pole because they would come and I'm sitting there, I'm hanging out in the lounge one night with some of the guys and they'd be like, come out to the deck. There's a smoking deck. And they just put their slippers and their big reds on and go out there and smoke because they got to have one.
Oh man, negative 25. Like what? Yeah, what is it?
Smoking negative 100. They didn't care.
Stop it. No way.
It's probably a really awesome sensation, though. Like your insides are so hot and the outside's so cold.
So there's a completely unsanctioned thing that the NSF and ASC does not approve of, but every Winter Rover crew does it, called the 300 Club, which is there's a small sauna on the station. You get in the sauna, you crank it up to 200 degrees or more. You get really hot, then you get naked, run outside. Run around the ceremonial pole and run back inside. So you've covered 300 degrees.
Do people do that?
So you can only do it when it's negative 100 outside.
Can your body withstand that?
Nobody's ever died from doing it.
Oh God!
I did not do it, and it is not good for your health. Most people that do it get like a cough, and it's actually not. It's not going from hot to cold that gets you. It's when you come back and you go from cold back to the normal station temperature. Your lungs especially just don't like it.
Oh,
I can imagine.
That's so funny. Were there any other quirky things that happened while you were there? Just because you were there. I don't know.
Well, I will say something that people don't realize, and you should know this if you ever go mountain climbing or just go somewhere in altitude. Alcohol has a much stronger effect on you at altitude than it does at sea level.
Yeah.
Really?
And people that thought that they could handle a few drinks, and they probably could at sea level, it just turned them into insane people at altitude. Yeah, there's a lot of stories about that.
Yeah. So it was just like 9 to 5, and then you guys kind of just did whatever you wanted around.
It was 7:30 to 5:30, 6 days a week. So we had 54-hour work weeks.
Wow.
But really, it was whenever something needs work done, you get work done.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Huh. And so if something was broken, you were working on it regardless of what time it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you were talking earlier about how much money it costs to go there. That's probably the main issue that people would have with coming. What would happen if, say, Elon Musk got a wild hair and said, I'm taking my jet and I'm going across the whole thing right down the center. I'm going to go across the South Pole and just keep going and silence all the flat earthers. What do you think would happen?
He could do it. There's nothing against the law doing that.
Why hasn't anyone done it? Do you think? I mean, obviously, that's an open-ended question.
People don't realize when you're going from like Christchurch to the coast on a C-17, which is a very long-range, large plane, that's still a 5-hour flight. It's not New Zealand to Antarctica is not as close as it appears on the map. So you would need like these Lear jets and these jets that these millionaires have that they fly around with don't have the range to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You need a large, like an A380, something with a really long range to make that flight. And I'm actually not sure. So you would have to fly from like the southern tip of Chile or Antarctica or Argentina across to like Australia. And I'm not sure there's a plane that has that one-way range without being able to land somewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And planes, and they're not going to let you land at McMurdo. That's not a public airfield. I mean, if you were like, we're going down, they probably would let you land at McMurdo. But other than that,
but then they'd want to know why you're going down there.
you might get in some trouble for doing that because if you cut off the runway at McMurdo by crashing into it, then now McMurdo can't get supplies either.
Yeah. So there's the guy that just took his private boat down. And he got like $150,000 fine or something like that. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He literally just got in his boat and just decided to go down and ended up getting a massive fine. So he did like a GoFundMe to try to like recoup like this guy.
Where did he start at? If he made it to Antarctica,
I don't know. Hold on, let me see if I can track it down.
Yeah, because nobody owns Antarctica. I'd actually be more concerned dying from running into sea ice and getting stuck in it.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
If he's in open water, and I'm going to go out here on a limb and say, if he's in open water, and then he's probably really not that close to Antarctica.
So you think he got turned around before he got too close?
I think he was probably in someone else's territorial waters and got a fine for that because you need an icebreaker to get to the actual coastline of Antarctica.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have one icebreaker left called the Polar Star that operates in the Arctic during the winter, North American winter, and operates in Antarctica during the southern. Okay,
so 2012, he's Norwegian, so his name is like Jarli Andhoy, whatever. Okay. He decided to sail down and on his 54-foot yacht from New Zealand. And he went down and basically $25,000 in Norwegian, whatever it is. He ended up getting picked up and fined. The New Zealand Coast Guard and private ships, I guess, picked him up while he was on his way, essentially. So yeah, $25,000. Yeah.
Like, so there's a bunch of islands that are kind of in between, tiny islands that are in between that are claimed by Australia and New Zealand. I'm going to guess he was probably in some restricted waters around those islands.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
They're like ecological reserves or something like that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, there's... Honestly, I really would be surprised if anyone would even catch you. It's an open expanse of nothingness down there.
Yeah, I just didn't know how hard like the treaty or like a red tape sort of thing would happen where like you're sailing down and if you get seen or if you get caught or detected or whatever else, like what kind of hammer would get thrown down on you. But, you know, it sounds like from you that maybe not so much. If you get caught, sure, but otherwise...
And the treaty only applies to the 52 countries that signed it. So if you're not from one of those countries, then they have no authority to do anything to you.
Interesting.
Unless you're physically on their property. Like, they don't own the dirt underneath it, but they own the stations themselves.
Okay. So if you're the Ethiopian billionaire,
you could. I don't think they have any authority to do anything to you legally.
Yeah. Or where's the Black Panther from? What's his country? Wakanda. Yeah. No, I know.
Wakanda. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, I don't have any more questions. Dude, this is so fascinating to me, though. Awesome. Yeah, legitimately. I think a lot of our listeners are going to appreciate it too, because there's not many people that get to go down there and work. Obviously, you're the 1,466th, which is, mind blowing. But especially not many that come back and just want to talk about it. And so I think that's where a lot of the conspiracy comes in. But any last thoughts on Antarctica? Anything that you would want people to know?
It's if you want to do it, it's an amazing experience. Anyone that's adventurous, I would highly recommend doing it. Even if you just go into McMurdo for a summer, they're usually looking for people like plumbers and carpenters and stuff to go down there, because a lot of blue-collar plumbers are not exactly enamored with the idea of, leaving Georgia to go to Antarctica. Yeah. So I would highly recommend you go down there. The National Science Foundation and the Antarctic Support Contract do fantastic work down there, especially considering the budgets that they're given from the federal government.
Yeah.
It's a minor miracle that things work as well as they do down there, in my opinion.
Wow. So in your write-up to us, did you reapply to go again?
So I'm currently billeted to go again in January just for the winter as a South Pole Telescope technician.
Awesome.
I don't know if I'm primary or alternate yet, and that makes a big difference, because alternates only go, primaries don't go. So I can't guarantee that I'm going, but I'm in the pipeline to potentially go.
That's awesome. Is that something that you're going to try to do every year? You think, like, for a while?
I think a lot of winter rovers kind of have the idea that they're going to do 3 winters. When you go down there, you get an Antarctic Service Medal with a winter rover device from the United States government. Oh, wow. And there's 3. The winter rover bar, the first one you get is bronze. If you do another winter, you get a gold one. And if you do a third winter, you get a silver one. So it's like you've got the full set after you do 3 winters.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Why center as the third one, or silver as the third one?
I think it has something to do with the color schemes of the silver is the one that matches the metal the best.
Oh, okay.
That's great. So Adam, I really appreciate you coming in and just chatting with us. Before we let you go, obviously I'm a huge Florida State basketball fan, so just a couple quick questions for you. So you were back kind of during, a lot of the team. Florida State had a really good basketball team this past year. So were you back during, a lot of the season?
I missed most of November, but
okay.
I was back. I got back basically at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I saw most of the season and actually went to New York for the ACC tournament and stuff
awesome.
like that.
How was that? Was that fun at Brooklyn?
Cool. Yeah, we stayed in Manhattan. So it was near the Met and the Empire State Building and Freedom Tower and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool.
I wanted to go when I heard it got moved out of North Carolina and it got moved to Brooklyn.
It's going to Brooklyn again this year if you want to go.
Is it really?
Yeah, we might have to do that.
Awesome.
We might have to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You could drive there.
Oh, I know. True. It's literally 4 hours from me.
4-hour train?
Yeah. Well, probably 5-hour train, 5.5, because they make a lot of stops. But I know it would take nothing for me to just get down there. It'd be like $40, $50. But Jonathan Isaac, Dwayne Bacon, who do you think's going to have, if you had to pick one of them, who's going to be in 10 years the guy that people are looking at to say,
Wow, that's kind of putting me on the spot.
It is. I know. And I know you love both of them. I'm big fans of both of them.
I guess I would say Jonathan Isaac just because he's probably got a higher athletic potential than Dwayne Bacon. But who knows? The NBA is such a fickle thing. People, you get people like Chauncey Billups or Manu Ginobili that were drafted late in the second round that end up being all-stars.
Isaiah Thomas,
number one draft picks that end up just being hot garbage. So
yeah, it's true. Yeah. So on the season coming up, what do you think the potential is for this team? Do you think we have a chance in the ACC? Obviously, Duke's reloading, North Carolina's reloading, everybody else. What do you think the ceiling is for the team coming up?
So we got a McDonald's All-American coming in, MJ Walker.
Yeah.
And I like the complementary pieces that we have returning. So Terrence Mann, Trent Forrest.
That's great, yeah.
We obviously have a never-ending supply of 7-footers. So
Chris
Kumaji.
Yeah.
That's so true.
It's been crazy that we've so consistently had people over 7 foot.
And multiple people over 7 foot at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
On the floor at the same time.
And Kumaji is a little bit more like the Solomon Alabi vein. He's a little bit more of a shot alterer than Ojo was. Ojo was more of a bruiser.
Yeah.
So, we could. That's kind of the offensive philosophy is you make them take low percentage shots by denying them shots on the interior. So I think someone that's a little better at altering shots has the potential to make our defense a little better than it was last year. It was. If we're being honest, our defense was not up to par from what it usually is. Last season.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the odds that Michael Ojo goes into pro wrestling?
What's that?
What are the odds that Michael Ojo goes into pro wrestling?
I mean, he has the physique to do it.
He should do it.
I'll make sure I suggest that to him.
I'm calling it.
He looks like the guy whenever you walk into finish line, the Under Armour,
the mannequin.
The mannequin, dude. Those guys are like, oh, that's unreal. But then you see Michael Ojo, and he literally, if you've never seen him, just Google his name.
The bigger version of the mannequin?
Yeah, yeah. But he's just as ripped, just as
7
lean.
7 foot, 300 pounds, negative body fat.
Oh, crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, crazy. So, Adam, man, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. It's been nothing but a pleasure. And I think you put a lot of things to rest for us in terms of Antarctica, so maybe I'm less likely to look at the flat Earth and say 100% certainty. Yeah, sure.
I'll tell you what, if this ends up being a popular segment, we can do another one where you take viewer questions and read them off to me.
I love it. That sounds fantastic. That sounds great. Yes. Dude, Adam, thanks so much, man.
Thank you so much, buddy.
No problem.
Yeah, all right.